The orientation's been flipped. Now I just need to see your application has been approved. Oh, that's good. That's for Galacticon, though. Urete. Let's get ourselves in here and start doing the things. Starting a new document for Brad. Next question I have to have is... All right. That's the important one. It seemed to be like much bigger than usual. There we go. It was like spent a lot of time being very close to you guys. I don't know what the problem is. Find it very disturbing, though, that it won't switch this format. First of all, find it disturbing that it decided to do that at all. That seems very obnoxious. Okay. All right. Can you hear me? Oh, now I need to turn you up a little bit further. Try it again. There we are. I hear thumps. It's useful.
Check.
There you go. There you are. This is my buddy Brad, folks. Yeah, Sarge, we're back up online, weirdly.
Okay, so you can hear my mic then.
Yep. We can hear you just fine.
Cool. That's weird because it doesn't play back in mine, but I guess that's for feedback purposes.
Yeah. Otherwise, we'd end up with you screeching.
Echoing. Yeah.
That's actually why I went over and killed the iPad, because I wanted to make sure that there wasn't feedback from the iPad through the system.
Yeah. Sweet.
I usually use the iPad over there when I'm doing the scanning thing that I'm doing. So how are you this evening?
I'm doing good.
No, that's good.
Figured I'd see what you're up to.
Well, no good as usual. So, echo. Are you hearing an echo, Sarge? Or is that just a comment you're making on us talking about echoes? Because that could be what you're talking about. All right. Well, maybe. Let's see. All right. Are you working in a clip tonight? No, that's aimed at you, Brad.
Yeah, I know. I'm not sure who you're talking to.
Yeah, I know, right? Oh, Sarge.
Yeah, actually, I finally ordered it. I think it'll be here tomorrow. So I have the, the trial version. So I don't
you
have
ordered a physical copy, which is fine. I mean, you can order a physical copy. That's cool.
Yeah, actually, I think I did order the actual
the box.
Physical. Yeah,
that's cool. Cool. I just keep downloading stuff. I don't know. Well, so you got the full version. Did you get 2.0?
Yeah, I got the spendy one. That's $200 one.
Totally reasonable.
Which I think is the EX, right?
Yes. Whichever one I've got. Yes. I don't remember. I did it a long time ago and it was called Manga Studio. And then apparently they can't call it Manga Studio here, so they have to call it Clip Studio, even though in Japan it's still called Manga Studio. So that's I don't know. That definitely is a copyright lawyer sounding thing, you know, right there. That sounds like a bunch of lawyers somehow. So, all right. Well, what can we talk about today for you?
Well, I think you can talk about whatever maybe anybody else might want to talk about. I'm fine with that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I don't want to take away from where you guys are at.
Oh no, I'm so I have about 12 or 13, maybe 14 bins of random papers that have come from various family members when they have passed away. They've, all of it. Like when my mom passed away, when my grandparents passed away, all of that stuff went to my mom's storage unit. When my mom passed away, all of that went to my dad's storage unit. When my dad passed away 2 years ago, they were like, "What are we going to do with all this stuff?" And I said, "You know what? I'll take it home and I'll scan it all in, and then we can throw it all away. And then if we need it, we've got it, and if we don't, it's fine, because not taking up much space is a bunch of pictures." Well, we've now kind of had a change of what's happening in life, so I have to now pare this down or move it with me, and I don't want to move it with me.
Mm-hmm.
But in November, we're going to get a rollaway and park it in our driveway and just, big trash bin, and just throw everything in the trash bin. So I've got until November 1 to finish this job, or whatever's left over goes with me. And I don't want it to go with me. So what I've got is I've got my camera mounted facing straight down. And so I just place it on that stage that you were seeing me there, and I just take a picture and then throw it away, and then take the next page and put it on the stage and take a picture and stuff like that. So, but it's an ongoing job that will probably continue for the remainder of October. And honestly, I'd much rather help you. So, because I've been doing it for days now, and I'm getting to the point where my eyes are getting crossed. So helping you with Clip Studio is a much more interesting thing to do. So
Well, there you go.
So yeah, it's not a problem at all. So all right. So you can kind of see here, I've got a modified version of that template I showed you, where it's got kind of the lines at the top to stop things, and sort of all of the different borders are in here and stuff like that. This also tells me some other things, like when at this resolution, I want to keep all my text at 8 point, because that's, depending on your resolution, it changes what point you've got. If you keep your master pages at, like, say 1200 DPI, then 8 point are these little teeny words that nobody can read, which is kind of aggravating. And it's that whole barrier between, what used to be print setting and what is now this entire computerized industry of making stuff on here. So it's kind of that middle ground there. But one of the things I want to show you, because I can, is how to make frames. So frames are what we call panels in American comics. And over on the left side, I've got all my tools in my tool chest over here. And the frame tool looks like a square with sort of two lines through the middle of it. And that it's kind of hard to show you.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, yeah. So that's the frame tool, and then under that you've got a couple of sub tools, which is divide frame border, and well, both of them are divide frame border right now on the cut frame, but you can also create a frame. So there's two tabs up there on the top of that. One's cut the frame, and the other one's create a frame. So if you use the cut frame, that's where you've got the ability to just go through here and just cut two frames. Right now we've got two panels effectively on this comic, right? And it can be controlled then by that same control point one, the vector control tool that we were just talking about before, where you can alter and change the frame. So let's say you didn't, it's, I don't know, it's crazy. We're insane. So when you're insane, you make the panels wonky, right? And that's where then, oh, I forgot to put this panel in here. Well, that's where going to the other one, which is create a frame is. Because then you can create a frame either by a rectangle frame like this, which just creates a frame, right? Just like a normal one. Or you can actually do a poly frame so that if it happens to be like multiple sided, like so, you can make the frame that too. So kind of starting with the concept of putting in frames, because that's, or panels are the first thing you do in a comic, really. For those of you who are watching at home, you may also try to do this if you want. You can ask me questions in the comment section of this video, and as long as this video is still live, I'll be able to answer it. So anybody who wants to also ask me questions about how to use this, I am open for anything. There is what's called a frame border pin, and it is exactly like you think it is. You take the pen and you can make the frame any way you want, you know. So if you have weird frames, I guess, you can just keep drawing strange shaped frames. The thing that's still cool is, like I was saying before, though, inside these frames, it's still doing the same things we were doing before. So we've got all of this stuff that's in here. We've got a background, we've got a foreground. So if you were to go in here with a normal pen, like say my G pen, inside this frame, you can still do the lines that, you know, you can just kind of go through and do all that inside the frames too, even if they're weirdly shaped. Or at least in theory.
Here's a good question for you that maybe everybody else already knows, but do you have a page with all the keystroke shortcuts?
Uh,
Or where could I
yeah,
find that?
yes. Um, so all the normal ones are in here. I'm trying to remember where it is because it's under here. It's under the preferences because you can change it. Oh, so it's file and then preferences. And let's see, is it command? No. Tablet cool tool where I've everything is slightly different because sometimes it's not under interface, is it? No, it's not. Where the heck is it? So yeah, you can always go to Google and, hey Merrick, hope your day night is going well. Yeah. But there's shortcut settings. Duh. So shortcut settings are here. So if you just go under file and then way down underneath preferences is shortcut settings. And then you get these guys, right? So here's your new command is Control N. Open is Control O, etc., etc., etc. You can edit it. So you can edit or add or delete. Here's all the saves, revert, commands like that, export, multiple page export. And the other thing that's really cool about these is not only can we redo them, but you can assign them to your tablet. Like my tablet's got 8 keys on each side, which are hotkeys, and I can assign anything to them. So I've got these buttons on either side that I usually use because my keyboard's far enough away that, well, not far enough away, but like, for example, undo is over here on this so that I can just draw with my thumb just sitting over the undo. So I just draw a little bit, nope, and draw a little bit more, and draw a little bit more, a little bit, nope, and draw, just keep noping out one of them. So now, as far as a printout of this, I'm sure if we went to, well, you're going to get it in the book that you get with your physical copy.
Make it easy.
Yeah, I mean, so it'll be inside there. The keys will be inside there. But if you need to know right now, here, but the problem is there's just a ton of things that you can do right now, and not all of them have commands. For example, quit. You see here, it's got Control Q for quit, but none of the other commands under this particular bar have been set up until you get to modify key settings right here. So it's just kind of that way. So, and then there's shortcuts. No, that's shortcuts. And then we got modifier keys. These are commands that are inside each one of these tools. So inside this tool, if I hit Control, it temporarily changes it to the object command. So while I'm out here, I'm using this tool to draw in, right? And I'll show you what I mean by this. Find one of the big frames. I'm in the big frame up here, and it's white. So we say, hi there, right? But if I hit Control, it changes it to the control tube or control function point. So while holding the control key, I can start controlling points. Then let go, and I can draw again. And then Control, and it allows me to mess with the control points and draw again. Merrick, you may like this. This is very useful. You may want to open up your version of Clip as well.
That's cool. Hey, here's another question for you. A simple question. Like I've opened up EX, and the fill tool, when I hover over that, says G is the letter for it, but so does a gradient says it's G. Is that just because this is a default program and it's not set up for different, shortcut keys, or what?
No, it actually goes by press G once and you get the gradients, press G again and you get the fill tool. So it just toggles back and forth.
Okay. Why did they pick the same letter instead of, A, B, C, D, E, F, G for the list of different tools they give you there?
Well, some of them are connected to Windows commands. So Control C is copy, Control V is paste, Control X is cut, Control Z is undo, right? Some of those are those commands. The other ones are, because what it is that this started with gradients and then went to fill tools as well. So it's a G for gradient. Because it can't be F because that's file. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So they just pick one that doesn't, G doesn't have, but you can rename that anything you want. I mean, like if you don't want it, if you want fill to be on a different command, then you can just change it in that panel I just showed you under file where it says shortcut settings. That's under edit. No, that's under, what is it? Story tools, probably tools.
Yeah. Got it.
Yeah. Tool commands. Yeah. Here we go. So under fill, you can hit G. And if you hit gradient, you'll see it also says G. And you can do that in here up to 2. I think it'll allow you to do 2. I'm not sure. For example, for me, I replaced P for pencil with B for brush because I had gotten used to in Photoshop hotkeying back and forth between B and E for eraser and brush. So you'd be switching back and forth from your eraser to your brush tool. But here you use pens. So it's a P instead of a B. And that just made my life confusing because I had gotten all acclimated to using brush, because in Photoshop, there's no delineation. There is now, but there wasn't when I was using it a long time ago. Photoshop only had brushes, and then it just had a special brush that drew like a pencil. And so that was still considered a brush as far as Photoshop was concerned. So you would get used to the hotkeys B and E to switch back and forth. You'd write something or draw something and then switch to E to erase it, then switch to B again to keep writing. And ultimately I'd put that as the hotkey up here on the tab on my pen, so that whenever I draw along, I can just tap the pen and it goes to eraser mode. But like I said, then they changed it later on, but I forced Photoshop to comply. And so now I'm forcing Clip to do the same thing. So I changed it for that purpose. So if you get onto my version of Clip Studio, you should probably be aware that if you hit B, you will not get a brush. You will get a pencil. So, or a pen, in this case, maybe. Does that make sense, I guess?
Mostly does.
Excellent. Well, that's good. I have a tendency to ramble, so always glad to know that, All right. Any other questions? Do you have questions, Merrick? Yeah, it cycles. It cycles, by the way, also you can set up a lot of things on one command so that you can just keep your left hand over it. With my laptops, especially my Surfaces, I tend to keep a 10 key around, just those USB 10 keys that you usually use. And what I'll do is I'll reassign my most commonly used things to the 10 key. Then I don't have to have a keyboard, right? I can just flip the keyboard around on my Surface and use it as a stand or a kickstand. And then I can just draw with the 10 key out to the left with all my most common hotkeys assigned to it. It's something I've been doing for a while. And that way I don't have to. And a 10 key is like $10. They have all these elaborate devices that you can go buy. But, if you think the way, all I did was just take the 10 key and then white out the numbers, and instead drew, wrote B or P or E or, undo. So the keypad just never worked as a 10 key for anything else. So I never use it. All right. Do not save. I'm going to start a new one.
Okay, I got another question for you.
Uh-huh.
So if I'm making frames,
Uh-huh.
borders, and then how do can you grab one that you've made and move it on the page?
Yes.
And what shortcut do I need for that?
The shortcut you'll use for that one will be Y. I don't know. Ha 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 ha. Okay, wait, that was not as funny as it should have been. So the command we're going to use for it is the cut frame, right? So I'm going to cut a frame. Let's say this frame right here. By the way, I should tell you, when you're doing things like cutting or making a line, hold the shift key down and it holds it to 45-degree angles.
Okay. All right, I see that.
Okay. Now that you've built the frame, click Y, and that's that correct line or control point command as well. And you'll see that when you put your mouse over the frame, you'll get the same vector control points. So like that.
So when I hover over it, I see the red outline and then the anchor points. But if I'm holding the Y key down, I see
no. You just need to click Y to switch to this tool. As a side note, this is the same tool you'll use for working in vector drawings. So if you've made a vector layer inside the frame, like this here, and you remember how I was showing you yesterday that with the vector tool on, even with your brushes that are drawings or whatever, you still can hit the Y key on this and change tools and still come in here, and that's when you can grab each one of the control points on your line.
Now, when I hover after I hit Y, I see the red outline and the anchor points, except for it looks like I have the white arrow, but a negative line or a subtraction line. In other words, it's going to delete the anchor point.
Right. So over under your tool properties, can you see where my mouse is?
Yes.
It says tool properties,
Oh,
control
and I got to
points,
switch it.
and it says move control points or add control points, delete, switch, adjust. I mean, I could just click here and adjust the line width
Okay.
by
Now I
hand.
see it.
See that? So if you set it for adjust, you can do this. So if you really want fine control over the line width, you can do that by
Okay.
switching to adjust.
And so,
Apparently, you can switch
and
it.
there, I don't see one on here. There's no control to grab that entire um, box that you made and move the whole box. You can just move the anchor points of the box.
No, 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 no. So if you look up at the top, up on your tool keys,
Okay.
that's that cube with an arrow pointing at it. That's called
Yep.
says
Operation.
operation. That will take the entire thing, and you can move it
Okay. So I've got to go in
as you
and out
please.
of grabbing different tools.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why we hotkey them because it depends on what you're doing.
Uh-huh.
This would be rather destructive to your artwork to do this. So it's not intended to necessarily be easy, right? But if you need to move the frame around, you can do that here too. But be aware that when you do, it does not move your artwork, it just moves the frame.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's one of the other things that there's a control for that. Um, if you take the crosshair one, the move layer, that one moves. Well, no, I guess it just moves it does the same thing. So
Oh,
you'd have
that
to
does
move the
move the
artwork
other one. Oh,
inside
there
it.
you go. Actually, the crosshair arrows that just grabs the object and I just move it, so I don't have to worry about the cube. With the operation one, gives me control over spinning it or even changing the shape and the size of it.
Yes. That happens up on the top up here where you along the top, you've got scale rotate as well,
Yeah.
which gives you the same commands so we can rotate them or scale them as we need to. And the real benefit of using vector is here, right? Because the old rule of raster was you can shrink, but you cannot enlarge.
Yep.
Because once it goes small, it's you enlarge it again, you get just a whole bunch of blocks. But
Mhm.
vector, of course, is absolutely sharp all the way down. So I'm saying this more to me than to you because I keep using raster layers and then going, why did I do this to myself? My brain still sort of thinks in the ways that old Illustrator used to work. So back in the early days when Illustrator was brand new and showed up on the scene, if you made too many lines, you ran out of memory. So you could literally make too many lines and force your machine to shut down. But we're talking about Mac 2s, because that's a long time ago. So 1991, 92, that era. And so I have a hard time in my brain doing this in a vector setting because that's just asking for it in my head. I still have instincts that say you're going to crash the system doing that, you know, because Illustrator wouldn't let me back in the day. But this, of course, We're talking about computers that had 4 megabytes of memory, 8 megabytes of memory. I think the biggest one we had 32 megs of memory, you know, and this machine has 32 gigs. So has like literally an order of magnitude more memory. So that's that. But that's why I keep going back to raster, and I really shouldn't. And I like convince myself that the reason I do that is because I prefer to have, I prefer to be able to do the fill operation. But really, it's not that hard to do the fill operation. I always do the fill operation last anyway. So in my workflow, it didn't even slow me down. It's just me being stubborn.
Good old Pella, Iowa. Been there plenty of times.
Were you there in 1963, though? That's the question.
Okay, well, maybe not 63.
Let's see, 3300 by 5100. Okay, so these are the right resolution. Huh. Okay. The question really is, do I have the masters for this? While you're working on your side, I'll work on my side over here, just trying to sort stuff, apparently. Just so you know. I don't seem to have the finals of this comic anywhere, and I don't know where they went. So I'm going to have to go find them, hunt them down.
No, just do what you want to do. I'm just thumbing around with this, trying to try
Yeah.
things out.
Well, that's what I mean is like, I'll keep sorting stuff, and if you have more questions, I will definitely be here. I'm just saying that you don't need to watch what I mean, you can watch what I'm doing if you want, but you don't need to. I'm not doing anything headed your way, I guess is what I'm trying to say. There we are. That's the folder. Ah, behold, this is why. Oh, where's 3? I don't know. It had a lot of character. This comic did. These are tankobon sized. Oh, but they've got Zipatone. So where are the masters? And that's the original scan. Huh, where did I put the masters? This is so weird. None of these pages are right. So you actually have been to Pella, Iowa, huh?
Yeah, when I was doing live production, there was a group that did conventions out there at the Central. Is it Central College? I think it's Central College.
Yeah.
Right in the middle of the town.
Well, in a fictional universe, this girl went to Central College, which is why I'm like, that's weird. I mean, like, I just picked a place because I was like, I wanted her to be from, the heartland somewhere. This story is about her being an astronaut. So in the era of which there aren't astronauts. So, but it's, yeah, that's just how ironic that was kind of cool. Because I picked it at random. I was just like, Iowa sounds good. That's about as heartland as you can get.
Yeah, it's a nice little town.
Yeah.
Definitely in the heart of farmland.
Right.
I suppose a lot of people do most of their manga work in black and white. And,
Yes.
even Adobe doesn't really have like you can go to color.adobe or whatever it is, one or the other, and do, pick a color and then create your analogous or monochromatic versions of it. But I'm curious, do they have, I don't see anything in here for color where it literally can let you, right, pick a base color and then it'll give you like 3 or 4 different versions that fit.
So you mean like a color wheel?
Yeah.
So
Well, you got the color wheel, but like a color scheme. So if I said I want, 4 versions of a analogous of this, red swatch, whatever number it is, right?
mm-hmm.
And
So your tertiaries and your color,
Yeah, triad or whatever.
your triads and stuff. Yeah.
But I don't see them. They don't give you one that will let it custom build it for you in here.
Not custom build it, but
Yeah,
there is, if you look up at the top of my screen up here,
top of the screen.
so right up here on the left side,
Yep.
I actually have all of my color codes for my comic here for whenever I do colors. And I've got this is for me to stay consistent so that book 1 will be the same as book 12, you know. So I don't want the colors to drift, you know. Like, wow, the blues were much bluer back in the early days before his eyes went bad or whatever. I don't know. So this is all set up for all 3 versions. So this is the Copic color right here. And I've got then, of course, the hex color right there and the name in the Copic. And then, of course, what its gray analog is, because my comics are in black and white, but I still use tones and grays. So that's sort of one of the things that I do. I don't know if you can use the color wheel to do triads and things like that. I'm sure you can, because this has every tool that you find in Photoshop. I just don't. I use color so rarely. Like, for example, even on this page here where I did use color, it was one color, you know? And so I use it so rarely that I really don't know the best way to color in Clip. There are people out there though. I mean, that's a troll YouTube thing. There are some people who do phenomenal work in this. But yeah, if you want to see your triads and things like that, you know, it's one of those, you know, you want to, I mean, that's one of those, I think you'll have to go out to a third party for it. But for the most part, I have a master document where I've collected all of my colors.
Yeah. So you didn't build that in Clip Studio. You built that and then imported it as a file. That page you're showing
Yeah.
there.
Well, I mean, I built it in Clip Studio and saved it. Yes. But yeah, exactly. I mean, I built it over here. Well, what I really did was I found the colors that I liked somewhere and then used the eyedropper tool. So like click to set to blue, right? Click to set that light blue, neutral gray, that green. You know, there's my gray. I just use the eyedropper tool. The default over here, this is a sub view. That's what it's called. And it's great for just keeping it. It keeps something up here. It's also what in Photoshop you had it as the what did they call it? The navigator, right? It was sitting up in the upper right hand corner on the tool pads or the toolboxes, and it just showed you whatever sub thing you wanted to set. And in Clip, it'll let you load a JPEG into that or any picture really, and it'll just leave that up no matter what you're working on. So this is constantly up because this is my color palettes for Bellatrix Rising. So
So to create, is that just add subtool? Is that what that is?
no, this is sub view. It's it should be up on the I don't know how your tools are configured, so but it should be the one of the options you can put in window. So under window, you can have this sub view right here under navigator.
There it is.
Yeah. And if you add it, you can load a cheat sheet on here or whatever, a palette. So I've seen some people load entire palettes in here. So they just got like, it looks like a paint palette, like a, you know, like an oil paint palette or something like that.
Okay. Yeah. So I just click, there's a file, it says import. Just click on that and then whatever file I want. Okay.
Whatever file you want. And then you can mimic it from there and pull the colors. I find that usually when I'm doing this, I don't need to know the complementary colors or the tertiary colors, but also I went to college and learned all those. So, you know, I don't necessarily use them. I don't need a cheat sheet typically, you know. I mean, like it's pretty straightforward down here. It'd be anything to the, your complementaries are opposite, and then your tertiaries are here and here. You know what I mean? Like, kind of figure it out.
Yeah.
They're to thirds on either side. So
Yeah, I just like the Adobe one or the other site that that's you can still kind of use, but now you got to pay to get more advanced use of color, but it's just creating color palettes. So I'll go, I like this red, but I need, complementary versions of it. So I just click the space bar and it'll just keep creating new versions
oh
based
yeah,
on
yeah,
the
yeah.
base color. So it's kind
Mhm.
of nice when you're looking for inspiration or you're just trying to find something it's not clicking, but you're not sure what you want. So
Right.
it's very handy.
Mm-hmm.
Now the story you're working on there, that's an old story that you finished, or did you say it's something you kind of worked on and you're just trying to revive it?
So a little of both. So this was a story I had been writing on, and then Apple TV started up a show called For All Mankind, and the first season was so much like this story that I stopped it temporarily. But I've been watching For All Mankind, and now I'm kind of like, I don't know, this wasn't so bad. This actually was kind of cool, and I should maybe go back and revisit it and just look it over and just see where we were on it. I had a number of pages in on it before I stopped. So, like, these are the final pages. And that's what I'm looking at here. I'm just trying to see. They're not in the right order, though. And that's what the problem is. I'm kind of like trying to figure out now, wait a minute, what was going on and why are they not in the correct order?
And have page numbers?
Oh, yeah, they do. But like in these two are pages that come first before that black page with the truck, and they're after the black page with the truck. And I'm like, no, wait a minute, what was I? This also wasn't done in Clip. It was done in Photoshop. So there's no master file on this that I can bring into Clip, which is also kind of aggravating, you know. But yeah, this. So, are you familiar with the Apple TV show For All Mankind?
Actually, not familiar with that.
Okay, the plot is straightforward. It's that the Russians beat us to landing on the moon. Because really, honestly, we were neck and neck right up to the moment where we landed on the moon. But the story is that just before Apollo 11 landed on the moon, the Russians landed on the moon first. So since the Russians landed on the moon, the space race continues, and it keeps going and escalating and stuff like that. So the whole first season is up through like Apollo 29 or 30, where they're running back and forth to the moon, trying to, racing to get a moon base up. Once they get a moon base, they're racing to arm the moon base because the Russians have armed their moon base. And you know what I mean? Like it's that kind of thing. So it's this alternate history of where we would have been. And then season 2 is through the 80s. So we're trying to get what we call the Pathfinder series. And it's all based on where NASA would have gone if they hadn't had budget cuts. You know what I mean? It's kind of like they were drawn down after we went to the moon and Russia gave up. When Russia gave up, Congress gave up. And so Apollo drew down and ended up on kind of like low mode through the 70s, and then in the 80s brought on the shuttle, and that was cool for a while, and then even that drew down, and so this whole series is built on that. Well, I was writing a comic where the plot of the story was that just as we started launching rockets, so the Mercury program and Gemini program, just as we started launching rockets, we got a mathematical progression from Mars, a signal from Mars that was obviously intelligent of some sort. And the whole story is about the same thing, what would have happened if we had continued on. I pretty much put an end to the Apollo program in my story after 24. So there was that. But, it was so that was what this is. And it was called Witches of Flame because it was based around the 7 female astronauts that would have been inducted. They had actually intended to bring women on in the 70s, but didn't because they drew down. So NASA was still running their Apollo astronauts through the 70s and didn't start bringing on women to replace them until they brought on the Wave 3 astronauts, which was in like 1979, and that was Sally Ride and Judith Resnick and those guys who became the first American women in space in the 80s. But had everything gone as planned, they would have been inducted in, or at least their counterparts, whatever. They would have been on third wave of astronauts by 1972. So they would have been bringing in women and black people by 72.
Very
so that was
interesting.
Yeah, I sort of did this whole long. I did a lot of research and things like that, and it was cool. And I really enjoyed this story, and so I'm kind of doing the wonder if I can just kind of mess with it a little bit and see what's on here. I like the fact that I drew Kennedy pretty well. I mean, not awesome, but not bad.
Got his general features there. Sure.
Yeah, it's certainly Kennedy. You can easily identify that as a atlas. That's a monster. Have you ever heard the story about John Glenn and the Atlas?
I have not.
So John Glenn was so they took we put Shepard up on his first flight. He was the first American man in space, but he was on a Mercury Redstone, which was not built to go to orbit. It was only built to just go up into space and then pretty much fall back to the ground. It didn't have enough power. They needed a more powerful rocket. And so they decided to use the Atlas for it. And the Atlas, they had real problems with. It had exploded a number of times. One time it flew up and then turned around and came back down because they were repurposing ICBMs. That's what the story was. They were taking the ICBMs that were designed to launch to Russia and nuke the Russians if we ever had to, and they were repurposing the rockets. But every time they tried to put these atlases on the pad, they'd blow up. And so the thing is that it was the Air Force that had, oh, hey, mashing. It was the Air Force that had put up the Atlas, and they had been working on the Atlas. And finally, they sent over the Atlas for NASA guys to start working on. And NASA started tinkering with the Atlas. And they figured out what they thought was the problem. And so they were good. And they put the Atlas, they put the Mercury capsule on top of the Atlas and then stuck it on the launch pad. Then the night, it's 6 a.m. or whatever. And here comes John Glenn in his spacesuit. And he looks up at it and goes, "So that's the Atlas." And the guys on the ground are like, "Yeah." He goes, So that's the one that's been blowing up recently, right? And the guys go, well, yeah, we think we fixed it. And he goes, okay. And he just got into the, just like, that's it. Oh, we think we fixed it. And they were good with it. He was good with that. That's
That's
where
where
he
he.
earned the name Steely Eye Missile Man from that one.
That's the ultimate trust fall there.
That is such a trust fall. I mean, Glenn made it up. You know, he made it to orbit and came back down and everything. What really drove me to this story though was that to me there are all these untold stories that people didn't know. All these weird stories, some of them are really bizarre and like really strange stuff, especially when we started including women in the space program. There were all of these what we today would consider to be phenomenally stupid questions that they kept asking of the astronauts. It was just so weird. And so, but it's nobody's ever really talked about them. I mean, they're there if you go look into, you go look into the history of NASA. I'm sure that any random interviews with Dr. Ride or Dr. Resnick would have come across some of these stranger and weirder stories, but they were never put out in the real world. Um, like, how many tampons do you need and things like that. It was like weird questions, and they're like, okay, what? I mean, like they just assumed that women needed them all the time. Nobody even talked about cycles or anything like that. It was just so weird. Crazy stuff.
Yeah, that's getting into the weeds, huh?
Yeah, but it was strange. And some of it was funny, like really funny. And it was just like, just really funny. Anyway, Mashing has read a manga where the main villain was literally Albert Einstein. It was basically a mangafied version of him. The wackiest story. I'm not gonna lie, Mashing. Kind of want to read that story. That sounds awesome. See, this is why I want to go back to this. Look at that. That is a classic airplane. The old Connie Constellation.
Like a spy plane.
Yeah, it's in this particular one though, it's a Hurricane Hunter.
Ah, okay.
So the point was that this story starts with the plane kind of going up, and then it's trying to look up this hurricane. And so looks, it says, look at this latest from our bird. Looks like it's headed straight for Texas. And then does NASA know about it? They have a flight up now, right? Apollo 14.
Huh.
So that's this story, which was that at the time, my hero um, is working out in a tracking station in Texas. There's her badge.
Nice.
And of course, just like everything I do, I spent way too much time researching it, so the badge is actually accurate. Because they had two colors, yellow and red. And if you were wearing yellow, you weren't allowed into mission control. If you were wearing red, you were allowed into mission control. So, you know, my character is wearing red. She's allowed into mission control. But I really enjoyed drawing that constellation.
Yeah.
It was a pretty constellation.
Yeah. That's now. How did you did you use an actual picture, or did you literally freehand some of those drawings, like perspective wise, where the last page you have where it's from the back view? Yeah, it's taken off.
Mm-hmm. So I actually used a rough 3D model so that I would be able to get at least the pieces right.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was a wing, or was a square for the wing and a square for the wing, and then, you know, cylinders for the engines and stuff. It wasn't a complicated model,
Yeah.
but just enough that I could get the basic details in, and then that allowed me to do it. Because like this one's also tough because it has these extended tanks on the end of the wings. So, you know, that was kind of difficult because I didn't have anything but cylinders to work with. So that kind of took some effort.
Mm-hmm.
This is actually based on the actual hurricane map because this is Hurricane Celia, which is why this is called Celia.
Oh, okay.
Because that was Hurricane Celia that hit in 60 or 70. I think it was 1970. So, yep. And then she's driving that truck now, her uncle's truck, that she's actually managed to make it not hack and sputter. So I had fun also with them on the freeway because I had to go look up different cars that would have been on the freeway in 1970. So I was like, well, I can't get that close.
Nice.
So, see, zoom in.
Oh, yeah.
You got to find the zoom key. Here's the zoom key. Yeah, so I got a 57 Chevy Bel Air.
Yeah, there it is. Yep.
Yeah. And then I've got this is a Dodge Dart, I think, and then a Bug, the butt of a Bug. And I had to go look up like 1970s city buses. So, and then I have like all this other alternate timeline stuff because, like, at this point in time, Ronald Reagan is a senator in California at this point, and the president is a president named Symington because the timeline changes, so the politics change.
Mm-hmm.
And so, with the politics changing, instead of having Nixon didn't make it into position. Instead, the Democrat made it.
Mm.
And the Democrat that was in the lead at the time was a senator out of, I want to say, Montana. I can't remember, but his name was Symington, and he didn't even make it to the end of the entire run. Oh, that's what happened. So what happened was this: because of the signal, Kennedy didn't need to go to Dallas. So since Kennedy didn't need to go to Dallas, he finished his term and didn't get assassinated. Because he didn't get, because he wasn't assassinated, Lyndon Johnson never became president. Because Lyndon Johnson never became president, you had a normal runoff for the next election that came up in, what was that, 70, I want to say 72, because it wasn't truncated, because Kennedy, of course, when he was assassinated, was only halfway through his term. So Lyndon B. Johnson does a 4-year term off of that 2-year term, which makes it a 6-year gap instead of an 8-year gap. So I had this all drawn out. This is this really stupidly elaborate piece of paper where I have all of them drawn out. And then I just picked different presidents to get in line there and stuff like that. So it's kind of funny that I had fun kind of thinking, because the Republicans, the style of the Democrats and the Republicans in the 60s completely different than they are today. So they didn't do the same things you'd expect them to do today. It's kind of interesting. So it's a subplot that I had fun with,
Yeah.
just having fun with that kind of interesting idea of what would be there. And see, this one just has the truck. Is there anything else on here, or is it just this truck? Is that all we got here? A scanned document has been identified. OCR. I don't want the OCR. No comments. This is so weird. Okay, just one page. Oddly. Here's the Pella review from October 5th, 1957. My fake newspaper written up. This is before Chat GPT. Gosh, I'd probably just throw it in Chat GPT now and say, write me a letter in the style of 1957 about. Actually, it might not be a bad idea anyway, because it would probably write something that wouldn't sound like me. That's good.
Yeah.
That's a good use of Chat GPT, I think.
Yeah.
Yes, the Night of the Witches. So the story was called Witches of Flame, and it's based off of an actual World War II story called the Night Witches. The Night Witches were a group of Russian women who, in World War II, flew these PO2 polypolovs. And not kidding, like these horrible, loud biplanes. And they started doing runs on German targets. But since their planes were so loud, they were getting shot out of the sky by anti-aircraft fire. So what they did instead was that they opted to, these things are nasty. They opted to kill the engine, and they would glide over the target, drop the bombs, and then the person in the back seat here would climb out onto the wing and crank start the engine up to fly away. Well, the Germans knew that they were being hit by women, but they didn't know what they were doing. They couldn't understand it, because all they could hear was the whooshing sound of the fabric of the wings, which sounded to them like brooms. So they called them the Night Witches, the Nachtixen. And so, and I mean, like, there was a seriously high fatality rate, because these girls, either they wouldn't get the engine started, the engine wouldn't start, and then they would crash, or as they were starting their engine, the anti-aircraft fire finally could get homed in on them, or all kinds of stuff went wrong. So they had like a 40% fatality rate, and it was huge. And so, and these, I mean, this is like bravery on the level of just scary, terrifyingly brave people, because they knew it. They knew they were flying these polypolovs, and they're just not good planes, and they knew they weren't coming back. So, but yeah, so that's where my story comes from. It's the women of the space program, so I called them the Witches of Flame.
Nice. Yeah, that's a great story mix.
Right? That's what I was thinking too. I was like, I can tell the story, the Night Witches, because I love the Night Witches. That was just so cool.
Yeah.
Yes, I think so. Oh, that's what I used it for. Right here. These are extras in my comics, so that you'd pull up the extra pieces that were in here. Some of these were about receiving the extra signal. Oh yeah, timeline logs. Oh, timeline. That's why. I did technical readouts, like the difference between the Rocketdyne F1, which we used for the Saturns, and the OKV 276, which the Russians used for the N2. And the N1. Block one.
Those all from scratch, or did you have a model that you built them off?
With these guys here, I drew them looking at the models of the rockets themselves, but the engines themselves were, of course, 3D, and I wanted a flat version, so I drew these flat, so to speak, but they're based off of the actual rockets engines, if that makes any sense.
Nice.
And like this one, you can kind of tell because I didn't get the perspective right on the RC thrusters. It kind of looks weird. There was a book, one of my favorite books that was ever as a kid, and it was called Star Trek Spaceflight Chronology, and it was just a timeline of, from Sputnik all the way to the Enterprise. And so I kind of took the layout of this page from that book and sort of, but they had like, that's what they did, was they did these little drawings where they sort of had some vehicle there or whatever drawn out, and then they had paintings for some of the larger vehicles that were just gorgeous. So, and then that's, I know who those guys are, but I'm not sure. There I am. There's Senator Symington.
Oh yeah.
So just so that I actually pulled a real person to be the president. Everything goes different once
Yeah.
you. Yeah. And this is Symington versus Kennedy.
Oh.
So that's the whole thing, is that in the election, Kennedy went against Symington, and that's why I ended up with President Symington, was because Kennedy actually wasn't doing well in his polls. But once he was assassinated, it was a shoo-in for the Democrats because everybody had sympathy. So Johnson got in there on an absolute technicality, which many of the Republicans were crying foul for, plausibly, rightfully so. Because that's just, it's like, can't really. But it was a landslide for Johnson. So wasn't even a question.
Huh.
But I don't think that would have happened if Kennedy hadn't been assassinated, because he wasn't polling well at all. In fact, that's the reason why he went to Dallas, was because the polls were showing that his initiative to go to the moon wasn't as popular as he expected it to be with the American people. So it wasn't polling well. And so he was going to go to Dallas to kind of drum up support from that area. And that's why he was in Dallas. So
I see.
I had changed the history, and that put a different person in the pilot seat, so to speak.
Yeah.
whole bunch of these patterns, like McCall's patterns and stuff like that, so I can at least try to figure out what the fashion will look like. That's funny. Because I'm like, I don't remember what the clothes looked like, but they were pretty brutal. Right?
Yeah.
And this is the location that that my main character is at. It's a place called the monitoring. It's a monitoring station, so it's MSFM in Texas, but it's out in the middle of Nowheresville. It just happens to be in the way of that hurricane. So why did I do that to me, Siv? I just closed that. That didn't help me any at all. Are you still working with Clip?
Yeah, I'm just poking around with the brushes, trying some different things.
Nothing wrong with that. And I'm still here if you need me. This is why I use the color codes so I can draw them if I need to. Like this is just character design and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Giving sort of a point though of like each character having a different set of colors to indicate their skin color and their hair color.
That's a lot of detail.
Yeah, I went into a lot of work on this one. That's why I'm like looking back on it going, why did I stop? I even did patches for spacecraft that didn't exist. Because the Voyager missions were a redo of a previous mission that was canceled, which would have been a different thing. These are oppositions. It's when Earth and Mars are the closest, which would be when you do a launch window. And they weren't ready in 65, 67, or 69 for a Mars shot, but by 71 and 73, they're getting close. In 75, they can do a Mars shot, but it's a long shot. On this side of the solar system, Earth and Mars are much closer than they are on this side. So we kind of want to try to get when they're on this side of the opposition side right here. So 88 is one of the ideal ones, and so is 86. These are the big Mars shots in my story. Anyway, I'm like, why did I stop this thing again? I had so much fun. That one's a good one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I like the artwork on that one.
Yeah, that one's pretty cool. I mean, we'd never send an Apollo capsule over there, but figured people wouldn't recognize what we'd really send. We have about 15 minutes remaining. There's the convergences of the correct stuff. Including their distances. That's very, very useful.
Oh, yeah, that's cool.
Sadly, unlike the Martian, the dust storms on Mars are more like a fog and less like a haboob. In the Martian, that's like their big plot point is a dust storm comes up and knocks over the base effectively and buries it and stuff. And in reality, it's the dust is so fine and the wind is so weak that it's really more like a fog.
Uh-huh.
It's still enough to cover the solar panels of our spacecraft, but
I got another simple question for you.
I've got an answer.
So, well, more specifically, like I've drawn an eye,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to duplicate and then
Mirror.
flip it. Yep.
Yep. So here's what we do. I will move back in here for you. I'm going to just take these guys and just delete them real quick because it's not helpful. Well, now I've managed to do something. I have to delete each individual one, making a point here. I'm sure I could have probably just deleted this entire thing. No, don't delete the layer. Okay, so take our G pen, and let's say you were saying you just wanted to do like an eye, right?
Yeah.
Okay. If you've got this on the layer over, oh wait, my layers are all screwed up. Take this layer, right mouse click, and then you can say duplicate.
Yep.
Duplicate the layer, then go up to edit, transform, flip horizontal.
There it is. Transform. Cool. All right. Yeah, they've got that in Illustrator, and I live on that thing. I love using that transform tool.
Yeah,
I couldn't find it.
not to do that. Yeah.
Cool. have to get out my. I'm inspired to get out my Orwin in space character.
There you go. That's cool.
Yeah, he's a small chicken. He's a space marine. Goes around, saves worlds around the galaxies.
Aw, I
From
like it already.
Yeah, I tried drawing a spaceship. I didn't get real far with it, but it was, the idea was it took an egg shape, of course. It's spaceship.
Right.
Not Mork and Mindy, but a little bit more tech than that. But
Right. I'm going to try something here because there is a way to extract line. The question is, how well did it do it? That's the real question. Oh, I'll be darned. I think it even did it. I don't think it did a good job of it, but I think it did it. There's a technique called convert line that I've known that it can do, but I wasn't sure whether it would work or not. So I'm like, I don't know. So that's what I'm after here, is like trying to see whether this would work. Oh. This is a piece that I know I've got around here somewhere. Yeah, I had. This was a piece that I painted with paints.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And it's hard to see,
Mm-hmm.
but I used a gold foil paint on it.
Okay, now I can see it.
Yep. So, yeah.
Fun.
It didn't turn out bad.
Yeah.
And I'm like, could I make this work? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe.
5 minutes remain.
And we're coming up on the end of it. I'm glad you joined me today.
Yeah, this has been great.
Gave me something to kind of go out and do.
I'll definitely have to, once I get my software loaded, I'll have to have you help me set up my initial, at least the pages of my first manga there, so I can get it
About
set up
that.
right.
All about that. That'd be fun. I'm more than willing to help.
Yeah, that's one of my biggest issues I've had is not having the software that gives you this, option to build your storyboard and the pages, and like in the manga version.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I do most of my work in Illustrator, which is not great for freehand drawing. So this is kind of a nice way to take advantage of, I can import my quick pencil sketch and then paint line over the top of it.
Oh yeah, that's the best part of it. And the fact that it turns it into an effectively an illustrator drawing is so cool.
Yeah.
We can do better than this. I think we can do a lot better than this as far as Phil goes here.
Mm.
But I kind of wanted to see whether it would work or not.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it doesn't seem so bad. We can come back in here and fix this a little later.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be fun too. We can have fun with this. I also did not put actual rungs on the ladder, so she apparently just I don't know, fireman pole down for sure.
Oh yeah, it just dawned on me what that is. Yeah.
And I'm like, there's no rungs in this ladder here. I'm gonna have to put the rungs in. or she just like just like a fireman pole.
Oh man.
But the thing you can do once you've done this, just real quick, is you can put in like a shadow, you know. So I have a number of different kinds of brushes. You know how to do the different kinds of mixes and things like that, right?
A little bit. I haven't tried too much in creating brushes.
Well, I mean mixing layers, the layer mixes.
Oh, okay.
So like going through and doing multiply, so it does that.
Yeah. Yeah, I've done that a few times. Yep.
Cool.
It's an easier way to make your to give it look like a shadow.
Mm-hmm. You go in here with sort of you go in with a purple for the shadow,
Mm-hmm.
and just go in with a little bit of a touch on that. And then you can adjust it too. You can bring it down so it's not so abrupt or whatever, whatever you need to do. Obviously, I'm doing this fast.
Mm-hmm.
But you can also kind of like that adds a little bit of roughness to the outside and the back part of the, whatever you need to do on here. Just kind of doing this stuff here. I don't know. I'm just messing around. What do I know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, my friend, I'm going to go on ahead and head to bed because tomorrow morning I've got to go shoot a house. It's a thing. I've often made the joke that photographers would totally be like on every FBI watch list just because of the things that we say. I've got to shoot a house. I've got a couple of extra bodies in the trunk. So,
Yeah.
no matter what, it just sounds like we're like, well, I'm sure I'm on somebody's watch list.
I gotcha.
It's got to be. Well, thank you for joining me today. I'm glad to have you here.
Yeah.
And
I'll definitely be back.
Yeah, you can come back anytime. I'll be here, and you can keep me company, and I can help you do stuff, and that'd be cool. That's the whole point of this show, really. So cool, and thanks for joining me, Merrick and Mashing. I see you guys both were out there. I didn't see Alfie this evening, which is kind of interesting. Hope they're doing okay. Alfie's probably got a bunch of snails, so there's that.
Nice.
See you later, Merrick. I'll talk to you guys later.
All right.
Always keep your eyes in the stars, guys. Good night.
Night.